Hey guys, Youngblood with you, and what I wanted to do today was actually go through and cover the different patch notes that we got for 2.6.1. Now these were technically leaked on Reddit, but I did get approval from CIG to actually go through and talk about these. So once we actually are able to have the NDA lifted past this, we'll do more than talk about it, we'll actually show some of this off. So we're going to go through and pick out the ones that I think are more interesting or significant. There is a huge list of changes here. It's actually a pretty significant patch. So if you want the details on everything, there is a link that you can go check out. But we're going to hit the important ones, starting off with Crusader, where they're going to be going through on the Kovalex mission and actually, expanding that by putting in additional things that you can do. In previous modes, you really went there, you found the 4 or 5 different things, and you were pretty much done. So it's going to be expanded. There's going to be some Easter eggs that are added. The smart money there is on some Big Bennies types of things. In Arena Commander, we're going to see some balance changes. In Pirate Swarm specifically, they're going to be changing the spawn rate of pirates. Now, I think this is probably a good thing since they're aiming to make a less drastic difficulty curve, basically making it more accessible to new players that are coming in. And I'll say, Pirate Swarm is a challenging mode, especially for those that don't have the ships that are capable of, high survivability. So I think that's probably a positive. One thing that they are doing, though, is with less spawning of pirate ships, they are increasing the weapons and that the aces are going to have. And for those of us that have played for a while, you'll know that in Vandal Swarm, the aces there are significantly better than like the scavengers. We didn't really see the same thing happening in Pirate Swarm, so I think that's a nice balance change that probably opens the gameplay up a little bit better for others. In Arena Commander, we're seeing the number of missiles and countermeasures that are picked up from the pickups actually being lowered. Now, I don't know what this means, but there have been times where I've flown over a missile pickup and I've had 3. So I think what they're going to be doing is trying to kind of play with the balance of missiles, because right now missiles are incredibly powerful, and if they can tweak it to get it to where they want it to be, that's probably a positive. A new one here, Suicide in Arena Commander, is now carrying a score of negative 200 points. A lot of times you'll see people that take a little bit of damage and say to themselves, well, I want a fresh start, so they'll end up suiciding. Now you're going to have there's going to be a penalty for doing that outside of having to sit out for just a little bit. In Star Marine, there is now going to be in-match loadout customization, which is great because now when you're in the middle of a match and your character's dead, you're going to be able to go in and actually change what's on your weapon or what type of kit you have before you respawn. Now, that's something that I think is good for people that are, facing somebody that's got a loadout that's making things more challenging. Maybe somebody's a sniper, you need to counter snipe or something like that. Having the ability to change is pretty nice. The FPS weapons have received a balance pass to improve viability. We talked about that a little bit in the last update video from ATV. Some weapons were dealing significantly more damage than others and hitting different body parts. They've balanced things out to just make things all a little bit more consistent, including adding a 25 hemorrhage scoring points. Now, this is an interesting one because if you end up causing another player to bleed, you're going to be able to get an additional 25 points added to your score. That's in addition to if you end up killing them because they bled out. The spawn point for the Marines in Station Damien has been moved, and we've added an additional route for players inside Echo 11, so slight map changes there. Spectator mode and camera, it's getting a rework, I should say, and now you're actually getting the ability to come in and be a pure spectator, and you're going to be able to join that through the checkbox Join as Spectator, which is going to be at the bottom of the screen. There are some new cinematic modes that are going to be able to be used within spectator mode. That's going to be first-person view and focused action cam. And you're going to be able to better align with the players that you're watching. If you've kind of just used the tools that were in there after like you got killed, for example, they were a little bit wonky to work with and control. This is going to give the person that's actually filming significantly more input on what they want to film. Ships got some updates as well. The Super Hornet, for example, has gotten that full visual update. That's one that we've known is coming for a little while. It should be encompassing the art, animation, damage states, and visual effects, basically making the whole ship leaner, meaner, and just up to par with the newer ships that are being developed. This one, speaking of Super Hornets and the Canard turret, is probably a positive. Ship weapons and mounts and turrets are all getting a health buff, so they won't be easily destroyed by splash damage. For those of you that have used the Super Hornet and the Canard turret, you know pretty well that the Canard turret doesn't have a whole lot of durability, and it ends up getting blown off pretty quick. And as such, I don't use the Canard turret at all. I end up throwing a size 3 on the nose. Now, being a fixed player, I'll probably stick with that, but for you gimbaled folks, you're probably going to enjoy that change, and assuming that it is as durable as I'm hoping it's going to be, that's going to add some, extra, I guess, variety to what people are rolling into the game with. As far as just flight is concerned, the jerk levels on ships should now better scale with boost. So if you're boosting significantly, the jerk is going to be increased. It should be a direct correlation. Ship SCM speeds have been readjusted again to provide a greater range of speed between ships. I'm more interested in how that's going to impact, the turning battles and the circle strafing, and because today, a Super Hornet, yes, it is slower, yes, it is less maneuverable than something like a Gladius, but it's still capable of, keeping that Gladius in its line, and it's. So I don't know. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how they balance that out. A Super Hornet shouldn't be a total victim to something that's faster and more maneuverable, but it should be outclassed in that category. So that's a balance I'm interested in playing with and seeing where it goes. Projectile speeds have been tweaked so that targeting pips of different weapon types will be closer together for easier targeting. Speaking of diversity and loadouts, that is a huge change and one that I'm extremely excited for. Because the options that you have right now are pretty slim as far as what pairs up well, what gives you decent sets of pips. There's just not a great opportunity to use a lot of different weapon combinations, and this should make that all a lot more viable. And the Mustang series has an optimization pass to improve graphical performance. Now, from the technical side of the game, we're going to see quite a few changes. A lot of them are kind of iterations of what we're seeing with Star Engine and, individual items there. So 2 aspects of our ongoing network refactoring have come online. The first iteration of serialized variables and network messaging ordering. Now, serialized variables, that's going to be something that's actually replacing the CryEngine way of handling data. This is something that was previously serialized by CryEngine net serialized calls. In simpler terms that I'm reading here, it's a much more lightweight means for handling update messaging on the network with reduced risk of updates being lost in caching or other processes in reduced lag. Again, what we're seeing here is the way that the server's keeping track of everything that's on the network and is basically making it a lower latency thing, so the entire environment should be performing better as a result. Speaking of that sort of thing, the new Megamap system is in place and is going to be allowing for much quicker loading time when you're switching between maps. Now, initially today, this is really only going to be impacting single-player maps, so like hangars and single-player Arena Commander, but this is going to be expanding pretty rapidly. So basically, we're in proof of concept at this point. Now, there are going to be expansion of servers. So for those of you that are in Europe, Asia, and Australia, you probably are in good hands at this point. That's going through testing now. Now, you can choose what region you would like to connect to on a drop-down on the menu. But if you end up not choosing one, you're going to default to the U.S. servers. So if you don't live in the U.S. and either Europe or Australia is closer to you, then I would consider making sure that you're checking that box, and hopefully you'll end up getting better performance as a result. Swinging back to Crusader, and we're getting into the fixes here. They fixed an issue where the Crusader ASOP terminals, basically the ship term where you go to call a ship up, they got rid of the all pads are full message. Basically, it's addressing an issue where, for some reason the server was losing track of where ships are. Now, this isn't going to fix if there are, ships actually on the landing pads, because that's a time when it should say all pads are full, or if somebody got destroyed and there's debris there, that's not going to fix it as well. And they removed the scavenging sites from asteroids around ICC Probe Mission 2. I'm not sure why they did that, but that was in the notes. So if that's your favorite place to go and scavenge and look at debris, I would consider finding a new location. In Arena Commander, the fixes, the pickups in Arena Commander should now scale based on distance from the player rather than distance of the camera. I love that, because there's been several times where I've been at a fuel and I'm sitting there saying, oh, okay, that fuel pickup is not that far away. And I sit there and I'm driving and flying and flying and flying and flying. And I'm like, God damn, that thing was on the other side of the map. So that's a good fix. They did fix an issue where the character's head would disappear after the ship was destroyed. I don't know if you've noticed that, but if your character's floating around in space, typically there's no face in that helmet. They fixed an issue where Arena Commander games could not go into negatives on their scores. I assume that's a correlation to the negative points that are now going to be granted for suicides. They'd fixed an issue where ships damaged or killed via missiles were granting excessive score. I think I've noticed this too. I mean, the missiles do a lot of damage, so I'm curious to see where this is actually implemented, because missiles do a lot of damage, and you're accredited for the damage that you do. So, when we see, 5,000 points when you nail somebody with a missile, Well, is that a missile bug, or is that the correlated amount of damage that you've given? Now, I think we all know that a lot of these ships aren't going to have that 5,000 amount of damage. So I think what it was probably doing is saying this weapon is capable of this amount of hit points. So this is the amount of score we're going to give you if you do max damage on this ship. So I think what you're going to see is if you end up killing somebody with a missile, you're just going to go up to the maximum hit points that the ship actually had in correlation to the points that you're going to be earning. In Star Marine, we kind of talked about this a little bit before, but the grenades have a little rework as far as the indicators are concerned. The audio from a grenade impact collision has been made much more audible. The audio for a grenade hold as well, that cooking beep sound, has a smaller range though. So if you're trying to sneak up on somebody and you're cooking a grenade, that's going to be something that's going to be harder for the enemy to pick up, whereas that clink when it hits the ground is going to be louder. And they made some tweaks to the footstep audio in Star Marine, basically impacting how you're going to hear other players. In the loadout area, they fixed an issue where the loadout customization would sometimes lock players out from entering a private match. I haven't personally run into that, but that sounds really frustrating. So if that was a common issue for you, that's a good thing. And they fixed an issue where all the weapon images were missing scopes in the loadout customization. I did notice that. As far as user interface goes, notifications for control points that have been taken or lost in Last Stand are now going to be much more prominent. I thought they were actually pretty prominent before, so I'm not sure why this change was necessary. If you're paying attention to the HUD on your screen, you're going to have a lot of things that are pointing in that direction. So we'll see what they look like now, but I didn't think that one was necessary. Now, this one I think is going to make a lot of people happy, especially those of you that are on the immersion front. They made the friendly hostile player indicator, so basically the Dorito, less visible. And they fixed a number of issues where the indicator for hostiles was visible despite no line of sight. That last part is the one that I think really matters. It didn't matter if you were looking at a player or not. Like, if you just happen to see them in your peripheral, they would end up having the red Dorito over their head. You should have to be able to look at a player and, judge their armor or know who you're playing with to really realize who that is. Now, if you point your gun at somebody before you start firing, you're going to get either the blue or the red to let you know who you're actually looking at. But it's just a less obvious approach now. The grenade indicator now appears as soon as a nearby grenade is armed, not when it's just thrown. So again, we're going towards the step of making grenades easier to be able to spot when they're coming for you. So if somebody pulls out a grenade and is cooking it, you're going to be able to have the grenade indicator to know that that person is going to throw it. That kind of goes against that immersion that we just talked about, but it's a balance that I guess they're trying to strike. And they fixed an issue where the grenades were missing from the visor heads-up displays. Social module, for those of you that beat your head against the wall trying to play with friends. The parties formed for private Star Marine and Arena Commander matches should now persist match to match rather than break up after a single match. I'm hoping what this means is just that private parties are going to stay together. So even if you end up going into a public Arena Commander match, when that's done, you end up regrouping together. I don't want that to just be, if you've made teams for a private match, those teams stay together, because it is frustrating when I'm playing with people in my org, we go into a game and then all of a sudden we're dumped back to the main menu. So I'm hoping that's just kind of a phrasing thing and not an actual design decision. Chat's now going to work inside Arena Commander and Star Marine lobbies. That's a plus. Fixed an issue where all contacts would appear as online instead of a Star Marine lobby, regardless of their actual status. Again, for those of you that have been playing together, it can be challenging finding the people that are online when everybody shows online. Yes, if you have their names, you can obviously find them, and if you know they're online, they can obviously accept your request. But it just makes things so much easier. We can just scroll down the list and hit invite, scroll, 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 invite, scroll, 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 invite, because you see that they're online. As far as ships are concerned, some ships had unlimited or near instant acceleration in decoupled mode. That's now been adjusted. They fixed an issue where the Rattler missile would fail to deploy rockets. Again, let's get all the weapons and missiles and everything like that working so people can test them and use them, and we actually get diversity in the loadouts people are bringing. But before, what would happen is the Rattler would launch, and that's the one that's kind of like a swarmer missile from Wing Commander. Once it's actually been launched, the inside smaller missiles wouldn't then deploy. So it was kind of a fail of a missile. They fixed an issue where the self-destruct audio siren would sometimes not trigger. I noticed that in almost all of my Aegis ships. And they fixed an issue where the lock reticle would incorrectly reappear after cycling cameras, even if gimbal lock was active. Yes! Oh my god, that one drives me crazy because the HUD is already kind of busy, right? You know, you've got the directional indicator, you've got your crosshair, you've got your your look reticle, and when you're flying around, especially using fixed, it's a lot of things that can pull your eyes off of what you're actually looking at. So when you lock your reticle, it should disappear, and the fact that that's being done is huge, and one of by far my favorite changes here. Now, ships are getting a little bit of a rework as well, and I'm going to kind of go through some of the more significant ones here, but there was a lot of small fixes, like with visual effects stuff. The 300 series, for example, now has a size 1 through 3 missile racks. Those can be equipped on the 300i, the 315, and the 325, not the 350, and it's going to be basically what was intended for that ship. The Aurora and all Aurora variants are now going to be able to equip size 1 through size 4 missiles as appropriate for the respective available hardpoints. A size 4 missile on an Aurora is ridiculous looking, but you can technically carry one. Caterpillar, they fixed a number of animation issues with the rear turret of the Caterpillar. It was very wonky getting in, getting out. It kind of glitched through some of the animation as well. They made some changes to the visual effects flashes of the Caterpillar, shields being hit for a better visibility. And that one was true. When that ship was taking damage or the shields were absorbing it, it was definitely kind of a fireworks show to look at. It wasn't all that enjoyable. So this is going to make flying a Caterpillar easier. They fixed an issue where the interior of the ship would seem to disappear when looking back from the cargo module 1. Again, that's a nice change as well, because when you look back and you see your ship missing, it can be a little disconcerting. The Freelancer, they fixed an issue where the user interface prompt to open a side door on the ship and the prompt to climb the ladder down were both missing. We like that side door. We want to use that side door instead of the ramp, and now you can. In first person, bullets should now appropriately penetrate limbs to hit other targets in applicable situations. So if your hand's out in front of you and they shoot your hand, it's probably going to travel through your hand and hit your body. If somebody's standing right behind your arm and you get shot in the arm, it may penetrate and hit the person behind you. Projectile mass has been lowered. Now, this isn't a damage change, it's just a mass change, which basically prevents people from shooting corpses around. They fixed an issue where one player could shoot the gun of another player if they both picked up the gun at the same time. I haven't had that issue, but I think it's hilarious. And they fixed an issue where our sprint would not continue if shift was held while transitioning in and out of our EVA. That one I really did not enjoy, so I'm glad to see that changing. As far as weapons in combat are concerned, they fixed an issue where a character would be locked into aim down sights if they transitioned out of EVA while aiming down sights. So normally when you're shooting, you want to aim down sights, but let's say you land from EVA and you got somebody really close, a hip fire may be a better option, or you're just trying to get a whole view of the battlefield. Well, you're in trouble because you were stuck in aim down sights. I like that change a lot. They fixed an issue where the mouse cursor was offset from the actual visual location whenever client screen resolution was not at 16:9. There was several changes here that were impacting or doing quality of life for those of you not on a 16:9 resolution. So that's one of them. They fixed an issue where the ship computer verbosity and the audio options would reset after a client restart, and players can now disable the cinematic missile chase cam in the game menu. I like that one a lot because I personally, yes, it's fun to look at, and I think it could probably make for some good videos, but when I'm playing a game, I don't need the pretty, I need the effectiveness, and I don't like holding it down to launch the missile and then I lose my line of sight on the target while it flashes to my missile for a sec. So big change there. I will definitely be taking advantage of that. As far as the heads-up display, they fixed an issue where the helmet radar would disappear after exiting a vehicle. They fixed the Moby Glass visor so it would no longer clip out of frame at different resolutions, and they fixed an issue where the HUD warning for an incoming missile would not disappear. Holla! Oh my god, that's good news, because that was one of the problems. Outside of the body in your cockpit, that was hands down my most frustrating bug. Not knowing if you still have a missile attached to you, you're wasting your flares, you're wasting your countermeasures, and then when you finally say to yourself, well, that's got to be a glitch. Nope, boom, missile. So that is a really good change. Key bindings, they coupled and decoupled space brake can now be bound to separate or the same key binding based on your preference. They're not automatically bound to the same key anymore. Prone and crouch can now work correctly as either a toggle or a hold, and the key binding for both can be edited in key bindings. And then from a technical perspective, they fixed an issue where players would sometimes load into Star Marine Elimination with a persistent black screen. I have had that. They fixed a number of client crashes in Arena Commander, Star Marine, Crusader, and Hangar. Fixed a number of server crashes, so client and server crashes. Boom, let's get rid of those. And finally, they made a cleanup pass on graphic detail levels for the Broken Moon map to improve performance. That map has seen significant improvements already, so I'm looking forward to seeing what they've changed now. But when they talk about performance, I'm not expecting graphical changes. I'm expecting a performance change change, which I also like, especially if it somehow addresses things like latency or desync and those types of things. So that's as short as I could make this big patch note. Believe it or not, I didn't cover a lot of it. So if you want the full details, I'll put a link in the description. Otherwise, stay tuned for more 2.6.1 as soon as NDA is lifted, and I'll talk to you guys later. Take care.